Right now, somewhere between $1 and $1.10, a quiet battle is playing out on the XRP Ledger, and most retail traders have no idea it's happening. Welcome to XRP Financial Horizon. If you've been watching XRP chop around near $1 and wondering why nothing seems to move, stick with me for the next few minutes because the data tells a completely different story than the price chart alone. We're talking about XRP edging higher while whale activity rises and retail traders hold back. And by the end of this, you'll know exactly which price levels to watch and why this setup could break in either direction very soon. Here's what caught my attention first. XRP pushed higher after a sudden burst of intraday volume, and at nearly the same time, new wallet creation on the ledger hit its strongest pace in 3 months. Those two things rarely line up by accident. When fresh wallets show up at that rate, it usually means new money is entering the network, not just existing holders shuffling coins around. Meanwhile, larger holders were clearly more active than smaller retail accounts, which tells us this move wasn't driven by the crowd. It was driven by a smaller group with bigger positions. So the real question isn't whether XRP can hold $1. It's whether this quiet accumulation turns into something the charts can't ignore. Specifically, a real run back above $1.10. Let's get into the on-chain numbers because this is where things get interesting. The XRP Ledger recorded 4,941 new wallet creations in a single day, the fastest daily growth rate in over 3 months. That's a meaningful jump, and it usually signals renewed attention from either new investors testing the waters or larger entities setting up infrastructure ahead of bigger moves. Wallet growth like this tends to show up before price fully reacts, which is exactly why on-chain data is worth watching closely instead of just glancing at the candles. If you're only checking the price and ignoring the network activity underneath it, you're missing half the picture. And honestly, that's the half that often moves first. Now pair that wallet data with what CryptoQuant found. The all-CEX whale versus retail spread came in at 50.9%, while Binance's version of that same metric sat at 44.6%. In plain terms, large holders are noticeably more active right now than everyday retail traders. That gap matters. It means the bigger players are engaging with the market, while smaller traders are sitting on the sidelines, waiting for confirmation before committing capital. Historically, that kind of split, whales moving first and retail catching up later, has shown up before some of XRP's bigger directional moves. It doesn't guarantee anything, but it's exactly the kind of signal worth keeping on your radar. The ETF flows back this up too, and honestly, this part doesn't get talked about enough. On June 29th alone, XRP spot ETFs brought in $15.34 million in net inflows, with Bitwise responsible for $11.94 million of that total. That's a big single-day number concentrated through one issuer, which usually points to deliberate positioning rather than scattered retail buying. Zoom out to the full month, and XRP ETF inflows for June crossed $62 million, pushing cumulative net flows to roughly $1.48 billion. So while the price chart has looked frustrating for a lot of traders lately, institutional money has kept flowing in steadily underneath the surface. That disconnect between quiet price action and strong capital inflows is worth sitting with for a second. All right, let's actually look at the price action itself because this is what most of you came here for. XRP rose 1.41% to $1.0613 over the 24 hours ending July 2nd at 4:16 UTC. Now here's an important detail a lot of headlines will skip over. XRP actually underperformed the broader crypto market by 1.27% during that same stretch. So this wasn't XRP getting pulled up by a market-wide rally. This was something specific to XRP itself, tied more to whale positioning and network activity than to general market sentiment. That distinction matters if you're trying to figure out whether this strength is likely to continue or fade once broader market conditions shift. There was one moment that really stood out. At 3:27 UTC, XRP broke through $1.0560 on volume of 5.34 million, a jump of 1,433% above the preceding hourly average. A spike that size doesn't come from a handful of small retail orders. It usually points to either a large coordinated buy, a wave of stop losses getting triggered, or bigger players stepping in all at once. Whatever the exact trigger, that single hour told us something shifted. Buying pressure carried through the next stretch too, with volume from 327 to 353 UTC totaling 11.31 million as price reached a session high of $1.0665. That follow-through is what separates a real breakout attempt from a random spike that fades in minutes. Now let's break down the technical structure, because this is where you decide whether to actually act on any of this. XRP has been building higher lows above the 1.00 support zone, with 1.0318 and 1.0410 forming the base of this recovery attempt. That stair-step pattern generally suggests sellers are losing some control, since price keeps finding buyers at progressively higher levels instead of retesting the same floor. The breakout above 1.0560 adds to that case, but it isn't confirmed yet. For this to avoid becoming just another bounce inside a tired range, XRP needs to clear and hold above $1.0665 with real follow-through, not just a brief poke above it. Here's a number that keeps this in perspective, though. While the breakout hour itself saw a massive volume spike, total 24-hour volume was only 5.95% above the 7-day average. That gap tells you this is still an early-stage move, not a full trend reversal. One strong hour surrounded by fairly normal daily volume is encouraging, but it's not the kind of sustained pressure that typically confirms a lasting shift in direction. Keep that number in your head, because it's going to matter a lot depending on what happens over the next few sessions. And here's the part that keeps this rally in check. XRP is still trading below every major moving average that matters. The 20-day EMA sits near $1.11, the 50-day near $1.20, the 100-day near $1.31, and the 200-day up around $1.52. That's a steep wall of resistance stacked above current price, and it's a good reminder not to get ahead of yourself just because of one strong breakout hour. Short-term strength and long-term trend confirmation are two very different things, and right now XRP only has the first one working in its favor. Momentum is worth a quick mention too, because it's not all bearish. RSI has climbed off oversold territory, which is a genuine positive. But it's currently sitting near 33, and the Chaikin money flow indicator remains negative. Translation: buyers have made progress, but they haven't fully taken control away from sellers yet. This is the kind of setup where you don't want to assume the hard part is over, because the indicators themselves are telling you it's still a contested fight. So here's exactly what to watch going forward, and I'd bookmark this part. The 1.0560 to 1.0590 zone is the breakout area bulls need to defend on any pullback. Above that, $1.0665 is your first resistance, since it capped the most recent push. But the level that actually matters most sits between $1.10 and $1.11, right where the 20-day EMA and the Bollinger Midline overlap. That cluster is the real test. Clear it convincingly, and 1.20 comes into view. Lose 1.04, and the 1.00 support zone is back in the spotlight, with the whole recovery narrative needing a second look. So where does that leave us? Until XRP actually clears $1.10 with real volume behind it, this is still a support-based trade, not a confirmed recovery. What's genuinely encouraging is the stuff happening underneath the surface: the wallet growth, the whale activity, the steady ETF inflows. That's the part most people scrolling past a boring-looking chart are completely missing right now. If you found this breakdown useful, drop a comment with which level you think breaks first, 1.10 or 1.00, and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next update the moment this setup resolves. This is XRP Financial Horizon, and we'll see you in the next one.